Diet Pepsi. I mean, I don't know. It can be RC as long as it's diet, Chris.
Okay, I'm going to call this meeting to order, please. This is the Grand Terrace County Board of Commissioners special budget meeting. This special budget meeting has been set. The purpose of these meetings is to discuss departmental budgets. If you're planning to have a disability, please let us know. At this time, we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please, Bonnie.
Commissioner Lathrop?
Here.
Max Bauer?
Here.
Thomas?
Yep.
Inman?
Here.
Rennie?
Here. Chairman
Limco?
Here.
And Commissioner Wheelock is excused.
Thank you very much. At this time, we have the first part of the public comment. If you'll read the public comment rules, please.
Any person shall be permitted to address a meeting of the Board of Commissioners which is required to be open to the public under the provision of the Michigan Open Meetings Act. Public comment shall be carried out in accordance with the following board rules and procedures. Any person wishing to address the board shall state his or her name and address. No person shall be allowed to speak more than once on the same matter, excluding time needed to answer commissioners' questions, if any. The chairperson shall control the amount of time each person shall be allowed to speak, which shall not exceed 3 minutes. The chairperson may, at his or her discretion, extend the amount of time any person is allowed to speak. Public comment will be solicited during the 2 public comment periods noted in Rule 5.4, Order of Business. However, public comment will generally be received at any time during the meeting regarding a specific topic currently under discussion by the board. Members of the public wishing to comment should raise their hand or pass a note to the clerk in order to be recognized, and shall not address the board until called upon by the chairperson.
Thank you. Hearing the public comment rules, is there anybody from the public who'd like to comment? Since she doesn't want to say anything, I'd like to introduce everybody to Sharon Breland, who is the person that is now taking over Barb's place at the Community Collaborative. So we welcome you, Sharon, and I think it's great that everybody knows who you are and that put a face to all the emails you're starting to put up to it. Thank you. Anything else? Okay, next we'll go on to the discussion of information requested. First item is revised department letter.
Okay.
Okay, I've got this ready for you. You only asked for a couple of changes. We took a 5% number out of there. And I think we asked an additional question here. Basically whether you're going to have additional revenues or if there were revenues, revenue potential. And other than that, I reworded a few of them, but it's pretty much the same one you've been looking at for quite a while.
Okay. Is everybody comfortable with that letter to go out? Do you want more discussion? Go ahead, Dan.
I make the motion that we accept this letter and have David dispatch it to the departments.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you very much. Appreciate it, David.
Thank you, David.
Next is summaries of departments not being interviewed.
Okay. I don't know if you want to start with this or start with commissioners, because we've got Chris Kramer here to talk about the commissioner's budget. If you'd like me to just move ahead, I'll do that.
That's all right with everybody?
Sure.
Carry forward.
It starts out, there's a summary sheet in your packet. Talks about the Department of Human Services Board. This is a statutory board, and they are charged with operating our medical care facility. It's an interesting arrangement. The DHS board has a state appointment and a county appointment and a citizen appointment, or a citizen representative that's appointed by the governor, I believe.
The county appointment is only a advisory.
Okay, so all of them are appointed by the state.
No, 2
No.
by the county and 1 by the state.
2 by the county and 1 by the state. Okay. At any rate, they're charged with operating the medical care facility. The county owns their properties, and the county has levied a millage to pay for the pavilions. It's going to be expiring soon, I believe, at the end of this year. It's for the
15.
facility only.
The building only.
Yes. And other than that, they're self-sufficient, and their operations are, the operations of the medical care facility, the pavilions, are completely covered by their fees. We have also the DHS board, it used to be called the Social Services Board, and one of their tasks is to provide for adult hospitalization. That's when people go into emergency rooms and don't have medical coverage. And counties used to have to pay for that, but then, for back even since the 80s, since the state took over social services, the counties, it's not specified in statute how much the counties have to pay, so some counties pay $1, and some counties pay $10,000 or $25,000 or whatever they feel like they want to pay toward adult hospitalization. We pay $1,000 a year. There have been some lawsuits regarding that many, many years ago, but apparently they weren't successful in trying to get the counties to pay for all those costs at the emergency room. So adult hospitalization appropriation is $1,000. For social welfare, that is really an emergency needs account for people who fall through the cracks in the social service system. And usually it is used to offset things that would actually cost the county money in mostly the child care area or other areas where it's going to be in the courts or something's going to happen as a result of someone not having these needs met. So they use it pretty judiciously. It's $49,000 a year, but I don't think they spend it all. They probably leave some every year. I don't know. Dean, what do you know about that?
So they had a carryover from last year, and so therefore we did not fund it this year. So some of their monies that they've been using over the past has been to help fund some of the Children's Advocacy Center and also the HelpLink office, because HelpLink office was not paying any rent or any utilities. So they're now helping the church with the utilities on that. That they give them, I think $2,500 to go toward that, and that comes out of that $49,000. They are very, very careful on how they spend that,
Right.
because what happens is there's money from the state that they spend first, and so they only use this as a last resort.
Right.
And they also have helped to use it for the laundry project. The first Wednesday of this next month, Dawn and her program manager is going to come in and talk to the Board of Commissioners and kind of give you a little more idea of what Department of Human Services does. It's not really, there's two different organizations here. There's Department of Human Services and there's the pavilions. So you have to make sure you separate those two out. But the Department of Human Services is over the pavilions. So they hire the executive director for the pavilions, and then they hire the staff to be able to provide the services. What's interesting is that they, being so frugal, a lot of counties pay money for medical care facilities. We do not, other than through the taxes for the facility. And so they are continually upgrading. They have a great capital budget that they continue to upgrade the facilities, both HVAC and also within internal decorating. And they are almost always full. And they're also, the pavilions is also providing a wellness center, and they also provide for somebody that goes in, has surgery, and needs 2 or 3 weeks of physical therapy, so they can go stay at the pavilions, and then they are then discharged. This helps Munson Hospital, because Munson can be dinged if the person re-enters the hospital too quickly. And so they don't want to do that, so they want to make sure that when they discharge somebody, that they go to this, get that physical therapy, and then they're able to take care of themselves when they go home. It's a great program. I mean, we are very, very fortunate that, Corey and the staff has just done an incredible job. And of course, they are, working with Dave to determine whether or not our health department is something that would be beneficial for them to provide for the PACE program that we all heard a little bit about when we visited them 3-4 months ago? Mm-hmm. I think so.
Now,
So that's kind of a thumbnail that because I am your liaison for that board, and it's been very enlightening and encouraging. So, Chris?
I have also been the liaison for the DHS board, and in my first meeting, when they took a vote, I went aye, and Ralph looked at me and said, "Chris, you can't vote." But I think what's important is, first of all, the pavilions does not cost Grand Traverse County taxpayers.
The operation doesn't cost.
The operations. The millage to support the building was approved by the voters. That's another story. And if voters choose to approve a millage, that's up to the voters. And they did that. It's a beautiful facility. I do have a concern, and I've expressed it to Corey. They are defined benefit, not defined contribution. However, Corey pays extra money
12%.
every year, and, I mean, above and beyond what he's required to pay, and as a result, he is 86% funded, and he's working towards 100%.
Yeah. A year ago, they put additional money into the retiree benefits out of their fund balance. So, and they are continually increasing their fund balance. Which is a, good thing.
And they're constantly looking for ways to generate revenue. They have a daycare center, they have, as you said, the pool. They teach swim lessons. They're constantly looking for revenue.
Dan?
This almost last sentence says the amount for emergency needs, parentheses, social welfare, in parentheses, is not mandated, comma, although the availability for funds for specific instances are often used to save the county in other areas. Would you explain that to me?
For example, in some cases, it might be to keep families together or give them services that if they don't do that, they might split that family up. So they're just the situations that they fund are as different, each one is as different as it can be. And the question is will they end up in our system, either in the jail or in the court system, with public guardian. The county will eventually be the last, if these situations aren't resolved with a little bit of financing through the DHS board, they may end up in our system somewhere. And that's what I mean by that. It's hard to say specifically, but I know of some cases where the money was applied in other places where I've worked, and it kept the family together and stopped them from becoming, the kids going into foster care and doing all these other things, because of the rules regarding, the way that the social welfare system is set up. SNAP program and all those programs now, they cover certain things. If you fit into the cubby hole, great. If your need is outside that cubby hole, maybe you need a vehicle, or maybe you need, something that's not on the list that they can't provide. It's like, oh, well, that's your problem. You go do that. And then all of a sudden, the rest of the things you're trying to stack together are falling apart for this family if you just put a little bit in there. And I think that's what they use it for.
Yeah, Dawn can give you more of an idea when she comes in and talks to us. You might want to.
It might be medical things, it
Yeah.
might be.
It could be heat, it could be
Heat, yeah.
any utilities, it could be anything that they can't do
They-
something with the state, or they might match the money from the state and be able to take care of it.
They
too.
use that fund as the fund of last resort. They try
Yeah.
everything else first. They reach out to Father
Every county I've been in
Fred,
has
so-
had a social
yeah,
welfare fund that was funded about the same way.
Yeah.
So just remember that
$50,000,
we
they
didn't
used
fund it
sometimes,
this year,
Sometimes it didn't.
so they're taking, they had a fund balance.
They're pinching pennies.
So, but they are very concerned that if you don't get it one year, are we going to continue not getting it? And I would be a huge advocate for us to put it back in the budget for next year.
So we do, we're saying that the pavilions is
Self-taken
Yes.
care
yeah,
of.
but it's
So-
not, we do fund it then.
Well,
We fund this part
No,
of it.
this is the Department of Human Services, two
Okay.
different things.
Okay.
DHS operates the pavilions, which is self-sufficient. It also we appropriate money to them because they're the governing board of the social welfare system in our county, the state system.
Okay, so we funded at
When people fall through the
49,000?
cracks, this this money is used to fill in.
We funded at 49,000,
Every year except this year.
except this year, because they have a.
They had a fund balance.
So this year's a moot point then?
Yes.
Yep.
Right.
But
Thank you.
for 2015, I would hope that it goes back into the budget.
One other thing, Herb mentioned that they might use our, they might be interested in our health department building for their PACE program, and that's a possible source of revenue for us. I have no problem with coming up with a very reasonable rent for them. We have to do some, there are some equipment things that need to be done and some things that need to be done that needs to be re-roofed. We could give them credits on their rent for that, or even, startup cost type. But I've had a conversation with Corey about, it's not really right. If you're going to put $500,000 into it, but 70,000 of it is the roof, we'll give you the credit for the roof. But if you're going to build the suit and put in, walls instead of bring in chairs and artwork and whatever you want to put in there, yeah, you're going to put $500,000 into it. Don't expect the county to subsidize that.
Yeah.
We would charge you probably a lower rent that you'd get out than, because they're a county agency, than you would get on the market for this kind of property. But we just, for our taxpayers, we just can't give that away. So that's where we are with that discussion. I don't think we're going to gouge them, but I don't think we should give it away for free either. So there's a possible revenue source for us on that building. I don't know how great or small it would be, but there'll be something there, I think.
So that, hopefully, that should be coming to us shortly. I think you and Corey have to get together and do some more hammering. There's some disagreement between Dave and Corey and I as to how it ought to totally be handled, but, it's all workable.
Yeah.
So it also, when did we list the building?
What, July?
It's been over a year. It's been a
July
year and a
of-
half about.
And
Probably
what was
about
our listing
July?
agreement for?
August of 2012.
Okay, so the listing agreement is for 1 year?
Well, you can pull a
We
listing
renewed it.
anytime you want.
Well,
You can.
no. Some you can, you may have to pay something
That's right.
to pay for any expenses.
But in this case, they're a county facility.
Yeah.
You
So
know,
we wouldn't have to pay
the question is,
realtor
would
for
we
the
be,
transfer.
would we be putting it on the, would it be on the market? Or are we just doing something internally?
Right. So that's a decision or discussion that we'll have when that comes
Okay.
forward. Go ahead, Dave.
Now,
Yeah.
who makes who's the person that makes the decision on how to spend this 49K? Is there
Dawn
eight?
does.
Dawn, the head of the DHS, Dawn McLaughlin.
And her program manager.
Okay, thank you.
Caseworkers come to them and say, we've got somebody that's falling through the cracks here, we need to do something about it. And they try and exhaust all their
Okay, thank you.
avenues and.
It's amazing how the collaborative has worked together so well to bring organizations together to identify different pots of money. And so they might get 100 from this organization, 100 from this organization, 100 from this organization to help somebody with $300 instead of pulling it all out of one organization. And so they can help to expand the how many people they can help with that money. And this could be part of that too. So.
Okay, anything else on the pavilions or DHS board or any of these items? Next is the county surveyor / remonumentation program. The county surveyor is kind of an archaic office that back when they were developing the countryside, not every county had a surveyor, and that it became an elected position because every county needed a surveyor to make sure that the land and the meets and bounds were correct when people exchanged property and bought property and sold property. Over time, it kind of fell into disuse, but when the Remonumentation Act was passed, as you know, the state was monumented back in the 1800s, I believe, and the markers are all gone, and no one can find where they are, so they're remonumenting the state so they can figure out where those corners are, and they're all based on the center line of the state. Anyway, so the state of Michigan has put in some money. A number of years ago, they had an extra $11 million after keeping us flat for about 10 straight years, and then they took all that money and used it for something else. And You know, so this has been a project that was supposed to take 20 years, but it's taken a lot longer than 20 years, and it's going to take a lot longer than that.
Mainly because they don't fund those counties that are capable of handling more. And they do continue giving money to counties who don't use all the money.
Yep, yep. And they don't really care.
And
They're
they
not
don't care.
watching.
Yeah, they're not.
This is a place that you can, you're not going to get a whole lot of general fund dollars out of this. County surveyor is, by statute, by the remonumentation statute, the county representative. He's, because we have a county surveyor, then he is our county representative, and he's the guy that kind of runs this program and supervises the peer review committee, which is some other surveyors that he decides who they're going to be and puts them on this committee. I'm not sure, maybe the board does, but anyway, it's a kind of a tight system. What I found out in my other job was that if you get rid of the county surveyor, you can actually bid all that stuff out and get probably a lot more corners done and get, you know, they will tell you, however, the county surveyor will tell you, and the people that work with him, that they have all the research and they're the only ones that can do this job now. What I learned about it was, first thing is that when you have a small group of people that keep doing it, they do the easiest stuff first and leave the hard stuff for last, because the easiest money is done on the easiest corners. So the ones out in the middle of the woods that you got to hike back and use snowshoes to get to, those aren't done yet. But the ones that are right on the corner, you know, downtown, those are done. So you can change the way you do this, but it's going to be when the county surveyor is up for re-election, and you'd have to say you're not going to have a county surveyor any longer. And right now, we're paying about $3,600 a year, and that's the portion that the state grant won't pay for the county surveyor's wages. And that's the way it is. And it's, all the rest of it's covered by state grant, and you get as many corners as you're being charged for. In my interview, year and a half ago or so, you talked about, well, how come we can't get the GPS corners? Well, it's going to cost a whole bunch of extra money. Well, if you bid it out, you'll find out that you can get the GPS corners and get them the same number of, it's just the way it is. It's the way it is.
Chris?
This has been a thorn in my side for years, and I don't ever, I don't vote for him awarding the contract to himself.
Well, that's just.
That's another story. That's
They
not why I
allocate the
raised my
work.
hand. That's not why I raised my hand. I raised my hand because when we had this discussion about 2 years ago, the board talked to Bob, and he's an outstanding individual, an excellent surveyor. He said the records are mine, and I've got them. And that concerns me to this day. We ran into, those of us who remember the septic treatment facility, and the records that the attorney had, the project manager had, because the attorney was the project manager. We had a devil of a time getting those records from the project manager, and indeed we had to go to court to get them. Oh yeah. And I'm calling this to your attention because I think this needs to be addressed at some point. And this was as good a time as any to bring it up. Doesn't have anything to do with the budget, it's just a concern for you to add to your list.
Sure.
Dan?
I thought his salary was like $9,000 plus some money left over for insurance. I mean, when I see this $3,000, it doesn't seem big enough. Is that what it costs us?
There's
Yeah, his salary would be in the range that you mentioned, and when you add some Social Security on top of it and workers' comp, this is the amount that the grant does not cover. So this is the county general fund contribution to cover that difference in salary and benefits. It's not a very large salary.
Okay. Does he get health care?
No.
So in other words, his salary is $9,000 plus Social Security plus workers' comp, but part of the grant pays for that, and this is the portion that the grant doesn't
This
pay.
is what it costs us then?
Yeah, this is what we pay out of pocket.
So if we decided, we couldn't do it right now, but if we decided later to have this, not have a county surveyor,
You're 4 years from now.
be 4 years from now.
2 years.
I'm serious.
2 years.
Because we just elected We had the
Countywide
debate,
elected officials just got
and
reelected.
we left it in,
Okay.
and so he
So-
was elected
yeah.
a year ago, so 3 years from now. I think it's a 3-year
Yeah.
or
But all
4
we'd
years.
save, we'd save the 3 or 4,000, we wouldn't save a lot in bidding it out, right?
No,
But we might get more work done.
yeah, and GIS needs those GPS coordinates. And when you bid it out, I mean, you bid out the county representative function, which is a review. You contract for the work that is done. I mean, the setting of the monument, doing all the research, all that. And you know,
So that's
if
something
you,
you'd
if
bring-
you structure your RFP correctly, you can get all those things done and have them compete against each other for the price. The way this thing was set up in the beginning, they just took a wild guess as to what it was going to cost. I don't think it's ever been changed by anybody. That's what I found out when I was in Midland. It was like, nobody's really looking at it. The state doesn't look at this closely. The county doesn't look at it closely because there's no general fund money in it. Nobody's really looked at this. But then when the county surveyor there said, you know, you won't understand this. Don't bother.
Yeah.
Made me look closer, and I started looking at it, and I thought, wow. And we ended up saving about 25%. We ended up getting more corners done. We got our GPS coordinates, and we, got done a lot faster. And the GIS people actually had somebody to cooperate with them. They could tell them, I want this township completed by doing these corners, and several of them are in the woods. You're not going to cherry pick these. You're going to do them the way we tell you, not the way you want to do them.
Okay.
So there's something here, but it's not something that you're going to save a lot of budget money on.
But you get the job done better.
Right.
Yeah. So when do we take action on this if we want to do this?
You take action in 3 years.
In 3 years, okay. You'll remind us, right? Okay.
Well, I
You
certainly
also
will.
Yeah.
must know that Bob probably is the most knowledgeable person of everything that's going on, and he has the archives, like Chris had mentioned, that he has all that stuff in his office, and the question is whether or not he owns it or doesn't own it, and I'm sure that he would probably have a pretty good argument that he's put all that stuff together. He's a huge historian for our county as far as monumentation and surveying. Dick?
The funny part of it is that a good number of the corners they do find are pretty accurate from the 1800s. They're not they're very close.
Yeah.
But I think it's important that we verify it because, as property gets cut smaller and smaller, your errors multiply. So,
Yeah.
so
Can we-
it's something we've got to do, and maybe we can do it better than we're doing it.
Can we go on to the next subject?
Sure.
All right?
Be glad
Substance
to.
abuse is really a mathematical formula for us. It's a liquor tax, a $1 a bottle liquor tax that was passed in the 1980s, and they required that the counties, you can have the revenue from this, but 50% of it has to be spent on a designated substance abuse agency, and that's the way it's been forever. And whatever the number comes in to be, the state treasurer sends us a number and says, the number's going to be this, and last year's number was off by this much, it's either positive or negative, and so therefore, you either have to reduce your taxes by this much money, or you have to give this money to the substance abuse agency. So you're pretty much required. If you're going to receive the money, you're going to give half of it to the substance abuse agency.
What happens to the other half?
It stays in the county general fund.
Okay.
But that was the deal, that they were going to put this $1 a bottle liquor tax out there, and
So it says annual fund cost is 500,000 and change. We give half that to substance abuse?
it's actually not a net general fund cost. That's really that's not correct, because it's a expense in the general fund,
Yes.
but there's a revenue that's twice as big as that.
So we get $1 million.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that 500,000, what do we do with the other 500,000?
It goes to our designated substance abuse agency, which is
Okay.
MSAS?
But we benefit, we get a $500,000 from that
So,
liquor tax.
so drink more alcohol, so we can get more revenue. So that we have a bigger problem in the substance abuse, so that they have to spend more
Treatment.
money to take care of you after you drink all that.
Makes sense to me.
More wine.
Yeah.
Make it
Dean, you
red.
had a comment?
Actually, in 2012, 12, we saw a slight increase in the payment because the debt service, some of the funds are going to pay the debt service on Cobo Hall. And
That's right.
the payments are not consistent year in and year out, but we are seeing increasing payments, and the state does tell us this is the amount that you can expect to receive, so.
There's actually two revenues, isn't there?
Yeah.
Convention facilities taxes.
Other than that 500,000, the other 500, we're restricted on what we can do with that, aren't we?
No, it became a general
Townships
fund.
are.
We're not.
We are not. We are,
Well,
apparently that's what, as I recall, they actually wanted the counties to support the liquor tax back then, and that was part of the deal. It was going to come into the counties, and the counties were going to send
Okay.
half of the money to the substance abuse
because
agencies.
the townships can't just spend theirs. They have to spend it on,
Townships get liquor tax?
oh, sure they do.
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Well, you just learned something.
Yeah.
It might be a different tax, a different state liquor tax than this $1 a bottle one that we got. Because we were getting no liquor tax before that. And I think they were getting
Well,
other
they-
kinds of
yeah,
taxes because of the distributorships and the.
But they're supposed to send somebody around to inspect their bars and stuff
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
They can do that with the money, but they can't go out and build baseball diamonds or anything like that with it.
Any questions, Charlie? No. Larry? Okay, next subject, insurance and bonds.
Yep, this is our property and liability coverage through MMRMA. It's a member-owned and managed pool of local governments. Cities tend to go with MML, but their coverage is tailored toward their types of services, and they are not nearly as big as MMRMA, and certainly not as, they don't have the money that MMRMA has. Cities get sued a lot more than counties, and district courts, and mental health agencies, and the groups that are the governments that are in the MMRMA. We get $15 million in liability coverage. You can't find that anywhere, really, for the kind of money we pay. And we also get net asset distributions at the end of the year. This year it was $115,000. The year before it was $500 and some $1,000. And we should be seeing another one in the following year as a result of, let's hope that we get through Carlson versus Jeter without incurring anywhere near what they have set aside for it. And so far, yeah, and the positive investment performance this year that everyone's received, the MMRMA has received, and we're bound to get a pretty good net asset distribution from that. So it's really a pretty good deal for the counties, and most counties, once they go in and realize how it works, they don't come out again.
Questions?
I know nothing about this, but I do hear some board members sometimes say that we should get some competition bids against these folks. What about that?
We can try that. I have a feeling we know how it's going to turn out, though. They won't be able to hit our targets, what we want to be insured for. The $15 million coverage is nice. MML doesn't offer that. They're through Meadowbrook. It's a different type of organization. It's like the Max Service Corporation. Max Service Corporation kind of is a layer in between Meadowbrook Insurance and the entity, and the city in this case. Whereas the MMRMA is actually an authority, a governmental authority, that is composed of members and runs the insurance company. It is the insurance company. It's
It's hard to beat them.
yeah, really hard to beat them, because we're
Chris?
member-owned and operated.
Well, I am a proponent of bidding this out. We're talking $500,000 here. And I see no reason why we can't at least explore and see if there's a better deal out there. $500,000 is a lot of money, and it very well may be a deal, but when was the last time we bid this? I don't remember it ever being done.
I imagine not.
How much, obviously you have nothing else to do. How much time would be involved in creating a bid package and sending it out?
Well, it depends on if we can find, I'm sure we can find one. I can find one from colleagues that have done this recently, and making sure that it, asks for the right things. You feel like you're asking, it's, when you know that MML is only going to give you a $10 million,
I know that.
and they
But
offer
is that-
15,
but
and
is
you
there
put,
another option?
you got to give me a minimum of 15, they're going to say, well, we don't do that.
But is there another option? I mean,
No,
you
there's-
can't tell me there's just 2 insurance companies in the United States.
No.
So, well, you
No, we
can,
do-
but
we
I
can-
wouldn't believe
We
you.
can bid that out.
But,
It will take some time, it'll take some staff time, and we'll see how it turns out.
I've just spoken for myself. Obviously, the board is not.
Yeah, I'm not
Join in, but-
opposed to doing it, I just, been around a long time and I've done that before, and there's no competition for them. There's nobody that can touch what they're doing, because they are member-owned and they give the money back to the members.
Not in
How
our
many insurance
case.
companies do that?
Well, they give us,
Oh, they give us a little bit of a
they give us
refund.
the
They
dividend
do.
check back.
You're right.
At the end of the year.
How big is that check usually?
Like I said, it was 115,000 this year, and last year it was 536,000.
And
But
it's
you
been
also-
over
Paid
a
for itself.
million total.
Yeah, but also you really have to think about
That's over $1 million total.
how much they paid above our our base of 75,000 when we do have a suit. When we say, as a board, when we go in a session and say, I'm not, in any particular case, we say, we see issues on both sides, and it would be just better for us to settle. They pay the differential. Now, if you look at that amount of money versus the premiums that we're sending in versus the dividends we're getting back, it's probably a good deal.
They're keeping us out of trouble.
Other questions?
Yeah, anyway.
Okay.
All right.
Northern Lakes.
Northern Lakes Community Mental Health, we pay $682,200. We've been paying that amount since, I believe, 1997. And when they became an authority, went from a county-run, it was a jointly run county agency with Leelanau County, and it became a mental health authority. And at that time, the statute specifies that your appropriation is now frozen at whatever level that was, and it was at $682,200. A few years back, there was some complaints, or they were trying to get the county to pay more money because they accepted the pension liability from the county,
That was the deal.
and the deal has been done for a long time, and all that went to bed, and the Hall Street location was another issue, because they've grown. Now they're about 10 entities or more.
There's 6.
Huh?
6.
6 going to 21 or?
Oh,
more
that's
than
the managed care.
Yes,
The managed care is 21, but the actual mental health authority that we're making payments to
Oh, okay.
is 6 counties.
It's 6 counties.
And
And
weren't we having a discussion about whether or not there was a end to this? And I think there was at one time a discussion that how long does this go? And I don't know if we've ever gotten into more of a discussion on that, and whether or not we could reduce, because we are probably the highest paying county, at least in northern Michigan, I know of. And most of the other counties are in the
You have to do-
$20,000 to $30,000 per year, and we're the $680,000 gorilla.
yeah,
And the question is, and I will bring this up because Sonny's not here, and that is that Sonny has always been a huge advocate that we're not getting the coverage in our jails that we should be getting. When we pay this kind of money, we should be getting a full-time staff person in our jail. It wouldn't cost them any more than what they are. The problem is that if you start looking at, and I'm sure Charlie has really found this out, that there are pots of money. And how they spend the different individual pots of money depends on the client that they have. And the client could get money out of 2 or 3 different pots of money to be able to get their services. The money we give is what they call is gold dollars, that it can be matched any way they want to maximize additional dollars to come into their coffers. And they do that. So then there's silver dollars, and there's, I don't know, there's like 3 different ways that they get their money. One is through the managed care. So some of it's federalized. The federalized money is 80% of the money they got coming in. So when you got that much money coming in from the feds, and the state has totally, continuously dropped money off from that, then they're not funding what they used to. So therefore, providing those services, I see where, I think the feds just jumped that up a little bit to provide more services, if I remember reading something like that. And so I'm not sure where it's going to go. They do own the building now. You know, that was an issue for a number of years because it was the foundation owned the building, and then they were told that they can't do it that way because people that sat on the mental health board also sat on the foundation. So it was a crossover, and so they said, you don't have an arm's length deal, so therefore we're not going to let you do this. So they had to pay money back for that. It was just a whole, if you ever have to get involved with an organization and you want to learn more than you could ever possibly want to learn, the mental health is the best way to go do it, because it is very, very difficult. It's very, I don't even know how their financial person continues to keep track of what's going on. But I will tell you that we need to start demanding that we get more services in our jail.
Well, we're acting like that this is a done deal, and maybe it is. Do we have to give up this money? But do we? Is there any room here to save some money?
I don't know.
Well, what there is there is a signed agreement. They were actually, and someone's going to have to correct me if I'm wrong, it's been here long enough. Actually, their defined benefit and their entire, at least partially, was governed by Grand Traverse County. It was a multi-county situation, 2 or 3 counties. And we were responsible for the large portion of the payroll and the benefit and the defined benefit program that they were involved in. And what we did is they proposed to separate themselves from the county, create this authority, which would remove us from liability moving forward, and it also would convert the liability portion of the defined benefit back to them as an authority. So they said, in lieu of all that, if you give us $682,200 a year, fixed with no increases, we will sign off on all the authorization agreements to remove ourselves from Grand Traverse County, from all liability, and that defined benefit portion of the of that plan, including the unfunded portion. We looked at that and said, how fast can we sign this thing?
Where's the pin?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Now,
this is another good deal then?
Yeah, it is to
Well-
a certain degree.
yes.
And in answer to your question, I mean, I think there is a statute out there that says, I mean, when you move to an authority, you're specifically stuck at the appropriation level from that year that's created. So the $682,200, whether it was some kind of agreement between the counties or whatever, that became our base appropriation, and it's not changed since 1997. So the good news is that it hasn't gone up. Herb's point, though, is that he thinks that we're paying a disproportionate share, that we don't have the clientele that supports that.
We do.
And to change this number,
We do have the clientele because the state hospital was here, and those people that were in the state hospital stayed in Traverse City, which disproportionately said you're going to have more cost for your people in your county
that's fine.
because of that.
His beef is he wants more mental health services for the county jail.
well,
That's
there's an
the big
attorney
thing.
general opinion out there that, I don't know where it went after I left Midland, but it basically got everybody all up in arms right near the end of my tenure there, saying that they could not spend state money on county jail mental
I
health.
think that was thrown out.
Okay.
I think that was thrown out. For-
But on
that
the
they
other
could
hand,
spend
we
money
could
on-
talk, I mean, it would be a statutory change that we'd have to look at right
Yeah.
now. If you want to change this number, we're going to have to get a statutory change.
So it really isn't a budget issue. We can put pressure on them to come to our jails, but that's not something we're talking about today.
We've been doing that.
Yeah.
But I'm not so sure that if you said, we're only going to give you $500,000 this year,
Unless.
that you could do that, but then you're going to have to defend yourself out in court, which
Breach- for
means
breach of
that you're going to
contract.
lose as much money as you tried to take away.
Yeah,
So don't,
we're not going to win
don't
that.
try and
breach.
change it.
We're not going to breach that contract.
Right.
Okay. Too much trouble and not enough money.
Charlie?
I was at Pugsley Correctional this week. People with developmental intellectual disabilities, huge problem at Pugsley. 25-30% of their inmates. In an institution now, it is getting more bad behavior people. These medium-level institutions are getting the guys with 10 years and stuff now, and those people just don't care. They create havoc in those units. We have a serious problem at our jail. Sheriff has talked about that, of course. Hard to get people from mental health over there. I sit on that board. It's the most complicated, convoluted, I can't even, I don't even know how the CEO keeps his mind,
Yeah.
what these people go through. I also,
I commend them for being able to do that.
it's amazing, really, what they do.
Yeah.
And complicated how they pay for things. I also was at, was it Harbor Safe? Whatever.
Safe Harbor.
Safe Harbor, over the holiday. Same thing with these folks. We had 75 people one night, 30 of them could use help. They do not qualify down at Northern Lakes Community Mental Health. They have this stage process to get you in. Huge problem out there facing us. And I think we better fasten our seatbelts and get after it. I do think also, though, that having the Hall Street facility there
Oh.
is a huge benefit to Traverse City.
Yeah.
As far as the employment and things like that. You have to look at that when you're putting that kind of money out as well.
That's true.
So, there's a couple sides to that.
I think it's really important to note that we do have some huge problems. The state has not taken care of the mental health. The federalization of mental health says you're going to take care of the most vulnerable mental health patients, period. And it's up to counties and states to take care of the rest. So general fund dollars have shrunk to the point that we cannot provide the services that need to be provided. And that's why I think the state did pick up some more, but I'm not sure how much more and how that affects it. Any other questions? Thank you.
Okay, the Human Services Coordinating Council, I feel like Herb could probably tell us more about this than I could.
Well, Sharon's here, brand new, if you, still learning. This is a great group of people that come together and talk about common human services needs in our community. Most communities don't collaborate like we do in Northern Michigan. I've found that universally throughout the state. You go down there and you tell them, well, you know, we get together on every other week and we talk about the needs of different people, and so therefore we'll take this money from this pot and this money from this pot and this money from this pot, and they go, well, how do you do that? Well, it's because of the coordinating council that brings this together. And basically, the $5,500, this is a dues-paying membership, and it covers all agencies within Grand Traverse County to become members of this organization. So that's what the $5,500, it's nothing more than paying the dues so that we can have a coordinator to be able to bring these people together on a monthly basis to be able to talk about common issues and to educate the people about what is going on in our community. Chris?
Now, try not to hurt me as I say this. These people are all paid individuals. They can meet anyway.
But there's nobody to coordinate to bring them together. This organization coordinates to bring them together.
You're telling me that somebody can't, in that group, can't pick up the phone and say, hey, we're going to have a monthly meeting every first Thursday at 4 PM. You're telling me that can't be done?
They tried that, it didn't work. Because people are so busy, because we now have gotten them doing so much with so little, that they are able to do something with nothing. That's an
Now,
old saying, right? But, yeah, but
another question I had, well, another reason I'm hesitant to move forward, and I'm just one person, with this money continually, is I don't know what their budget is. If they're paying rent for the Michigan Works
No, they're not.
Conference or not, I didn't know.
No.
And
They pay no rent. This is strictly to pay for the part-time person. And you're what, 10 hours a week? 18 a week, 18 hours a week, and no benefits. And so that's their job is to get all the information, working with the Poverty Reduction Initiative, working with,
Courts?
I don't know, how many
Health
other
Department?
agencies?
Yeah.
So, Dan?
Well, what this person, basically this $5,500 goes to pay that person's salary? that
Part of it.
coordinates, so it's a one-person thing? We're paying for one person's salary part-time? What is that salary?
It's,
I'm currently working an average of 18 hours.
Sharon, you
Sharon.
want to come up to the microphone, please?
Hi. Let me just look things up. Like he said, I'm really new. I don't have everything memorized yet, so. But I'm working an average of 18 hours a week. If you work that out to an hourly rate based on my salary, it's about $25 an hour. I'm a contract person. I'm an independent contractor who's been contracted with by the collaborative on an annual basis. So my contract will get reviewed again at the end of this year. I really think that Mr. Benda and Commissioner Lemkool spoke very well when they spoke about what Human Services is doing with the pot of money that you're giving them. What we do at the collaborative is a very similar thing. We're a convener, getting people together to address issues, not that we've necessarily identified, but that have been identified by the community, and try to bring people together to use the existing resources to solve them the best way we can before it becomes a bigger situation and a bigger drain on everybody.
The courts are part of this, the
Child care fund and
Michigan State Extension, Commission on Aging.
Community mental health, all of the
Yeah, but
Catholic
mental
family
health pays
services.
their own dues. I'm talking about Grand Terrace
Health
County.
Department.
Yeah, oh, the
Departments.
departments. Yeah, the health department, the sheriff's department, the court system.
Yeah.
I still didn't get your salary, though. How much is it a year?
Let me look up the annual number.
$25 an hour times 18 hours a week.
Yeah,
I can't do that in my head,
It's-
so.
18 or something $1,000 a year, but let me look
About
at it.
22,000.
22,000?
Yeah.
Thanks. Okay, then, we're paying $5,500. Is that what everyone else is paying? Is the Commission on Aging paying also? or just
Commission on
us?
Aging is not paying any dues, that's part of this.
Okay, so,
So if your community mental health, I think gives $10,000 plus $1,000 a year for dues. So that's part of the 10 or something it was used to be for,
And we have a special MOU with CMH.
Right, with
So
CMH.
that I will work specifically with them on a poverty reduction strategy.
I'm just wondering.
yeah,
why are
everybody
we-
else
why
pays
are we paying-
$1,000.
Why are we paying
Goodwill
$5,000?
pays $1,000.
Yeah.
Mental health pays $1,000. Family services pay $1,000. Most of them are $1,000.
How'd they come up with this number? My question.
Because we looked at all the departments that were eligible for Grand Terrace County, and it would have been like a $9,000. So they said for $5,200, we'll leave it, or $5,500. And so that was arbitrary. It's never gone up. It's always been the same stagnant amount.
We took it from 9 to 5,500.
So a point of order here, are we going to decide let's
No.
pretend we wanted to not do this,
Mark,
right? Do we
just-
decide it now, or do we decide it later?
Just mark it on your thing. If you want to look at this at a future time, then we can bring it back and do it, or if you can just say, okay, we're fine with it. So, Larry?
To the question of Commissioner Lathrop, my my feeling is, as one commissioner, is I'd like to hear and take notes as we go through this whole process, and then come back and address the board if I have a particular strong feeling about not funding something. But I'd like to hear the whole picture first before
Yeah.
I come back individually.
Chris?
Well, and just, Sharon, so you know, I'm looking at what I view government's role is. It needs to be outcome-focused, and I want a healthy community, a safe community, and a clean environment for our community. And so as I look forward in the budget process, I'm going to be asking people, and I'll ask you now, how does your organization help the county board achieve those outcomes? And you don't have to answer me right this minute. Feel free to give me a call and talk to me offline. My phone number's listed in the book.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Township Fire is 0.
Now, we do have a person that was grandfathered into the county's, basically was a county employee, and because she was part of the defined benefit plan, had to remain a county employee in order to keep her retirement, and she is closing in on retirement now. But at any rate, the township reimburses us for the costs, but, she's a county employee.
Chris?
I think I miss Commissioner Fleece whenever this topic comes up because he and I agreed on this. I believe we need to stop this. And I'm going to, Dean, when you bill the township for the defined benefit pension, is that just that annual dues that, or her portion, this individual's portion of our defined benefit bill?
We have, because this person is on the defined benefit, there are defined benefit retirement charges allocated to that. It's a separate department. Very easy to keep track of the costs. So yes, we do. As we go forward with the increasing payments in our revised allocation.
Are they going to
things
pay
change.
that?
They have always paid what we have.
But I mean, if she retires, are they going to continue to pay because those costs are going to be
No,
then this needs to stop.
no,
It just needs to stop.
We've had some discussions on this. I think even recently in budget discussions, this comes up almost every
does.
year. Yep.
Dan?
Well, how much is it that we're spending?
think I
It says 0, but apparently we are spending money.
No, we're
on
going
this
to.
Or we're going to. How much is it going to be? Do you have any idea?
I think I billed 7,000 according to last night's meeting.
7,000 a year?
For that defined benefit program.
Right now, yeah, but,
They're covering the rest of it.
I mean, we're gonna have to pay her retirement. We've been paying into retirement for years. It's 50% funded, right? The legacy costs are 50% funded.
So we're going to pay half of this person's retirement.
The other half hasn't been covered.
No. And that's what,
So the county-
and we keep incurring more
It's-
costs. It has to
I mean,
stop.
collaboration's a wonderful thing, but sometimes it's not, you're not fully reimbursed for your costs.
Larry?
History is a wonderful thing sometimes on this board, even though you guys might get tired of hearing it.
Never.
Okay. The reason the previous boards agreed to
You got
move
60
forward.
minutes, 60 seconds.
Yes. The reason the previous boards agreed, you should have done that with Commissioner Fleece, because he always had a story. The reason that previous boards agreed to move this forward on the last two budget cycles is that, as Commissioner Maxbauer said, our desire was just, we're going to have to just cut this off, and then she just needs to go on their defined, whatever retirement plan rural fire has. She can still lock in
Yes.
the number of years and her
But it's-
benefit amount with Grand Traverse County. The reason why, out of good faith, a little bit of heart into it to her back, is, I guess the only way we can explain this is that she indicated to us that she was rounding third, heading home, and was going to retire, and we would just, we would fund this for this year, expecting her to announce her retirement.
Larry, that was 7 years ago.
Yes. I don't know how many years ago, but that's been the story as to why we've continued to do it, is that we keep hearing back she's going to retire soon or that year or the next year, and we've just let it go. So
No.
I guess we need a commitment from the young lady when she's actually going to
No, we
retire.
need to stop. And she can go on defined contribution.
Yeah, or we can do that.
Dick, you had a comment?
No, I guess not.
Okay. Yeah,
Well, are we going to do anything about this? I mean, I'd like to know what it's actually costing us, and I haven't heard a figure yet. And then do we have a choice? Can we get out of this?
so this is one of those you want to bring back?
Yes.
Yeah,
You
how much
bet.
does it cost, and do
We
we
could-
have a choice?
Have them continue to pay after she retires.
Then I'm fine with it,
Sure.
Well,
but I want a written agreement.
work on it.
Yeah.
But it's,
Okay.
Last night, Rural Metro told me they got billed $7,000. Whether that's the accurate figure or not, I don't know.
But I'm wondering, is that a year, or what is that?
That's the annual bill that they got for the
We
year.
did eliminate the safety persons funding that we paid. So we were paying the safety persons funding. So we did eliminate that, and so they were able to find other funding to be able to make sure that she can get that. And they're doing just incredible. It was interesting last night at Garfield Township, the fire chief talked about the smoke alarms, that they are continually smoking alarm. Anytime they go into a house, that's one of the things they review, no matter if they go in as a medical call or a fire call. They go back and replace or put in a smoke detector.
What township is this?
That's rural fire.
That's rural fire.
Rural fire?
Yeah, rural fire.
It's several townships.
Several
But
townships.
Metro and the city, and I don't know if rural is doing the smoke alarms or not.
sure they're,
I think they
No, I
are.
mean, this person.
Metro Fire is pretty much
She-
the
she
urban
works-
townships.
She works for,
This person is rural fire?
Rural
She
Fire
works
is
for
the
rural
rural
fire.
townships.
Okay.
and they have a new fire chief now that's really, from what I understand, is
No.
doing a phenomenal job.
well, I hope it works, because there's big troubles in
Oh,
there.
yeah. Oh, I tell you what, he's got a big charge in front of him,
I'll be
Yeah,
surprised
keep
if
it
they
alive.
continue.
so.
Yeah, we were just discussing whether we could quantify what the cost would be, and I mean, it's the retiree cost. I mean, you can't really say.
Yeah.
You know, the obligation is incurred. The years of service have, most of those years of service have been earned. She- you have promised a benefit to her at a certain level. How much it costs the county over time depends on how long she lives after she retires.
But we don't have,
Some people don't make it to retirement, and some people die 30 years later.
but here's the issue.
I'm hoping
The
for
unfunded portion
That's
allocation.
what I'm hoping for.
The unfunded portion of that allocation, I don't think is
If I
being
have to sit
charged
through one of
back
these-
because there is no existing department within the county to charge that back to. So it's the actual exact cost. That's what I'm,
Yeah, and to the extent that we're,
Yeah.
partially funded, depends on how she
They don't count.
stacks up to the actuarial tables.
If we're going to get through this list,
We gotta move.
we're going to have to start moving.
Yeah.
If you don't mind.
We should have an answer to this, though.
well, let's just,
Just not just, well. I mean,
Okay, I'm just trying to,
All right.
let's just put a star on that and they can come back.
We're not
Okay.
acting on it
Yeah.
today.
resource recovery,
Resource recovery is,
So I
of
think
course,
we've
the
been
department of
through
the
that.
county that is funded through a tipping fee, which
Yeah.
is when they take county trash from county residences to, there's a
Landfill
solid waste ordinance that we've adopted, the County Board of Commissioners has adopted, and all the townships have adopted, that says that, they're going to have to pay a tipping fee to finance our resource recovery department. As you know, they're also in charge of recycling programs, and they manage the brush site. They take care of batteries and, household hazardous waste programs. And I went over there yesterday and spoke with our new director, and, the slate, it's a clean slate. You can do what you want. You've got this, you can either do as much or as little as you want, but do we want to do scrap tire collections? Do we want to do more hazardous waste things? Do we want to do less? Everything can be tailored to what we actually levy in that tipping fee, and receive in, revenue to support the department. So we have an outreach program that basically makes sure that everybody knows where they can do things and informs them of the hazardous waste things and takes the appointments when people want to make those appointments. Picks up the batteries at various locations and moves them to to American Waste. And it's,
We also have a very,
but there's no general fund money in, and we can't really take general fund money out. The tipping fee is for solid waste regulation and
we also have a good
recycling.
take-it-back program. He has established a good take-it-back program. So,
Yep.
Charlie?
Question on this tipping fee, what kind of money do they generate annually? Do they spend all the money in their department? Is there money that could come back to the general fund if there's an excess?
We're winding down.
Well, 2 years
I
ago,
know
we
they run a
went,
big fund balance and
it's
stuff
been
that.
like as high as $8 or $9.
Yes.
And it dropped down to about 4.25, I think. And then last year, the board reduced it to $2. And there are some things that happen. The Hotel Indigo is got a ton of, tons of solid waste that went into landfills that we got the tipping fee on that's so far in excess of what we expected, of normal things. When you have a development that has contaminated soil like that, it really, that I think was a $120,000 boot right there, revenue from that one source. So, we were talking about maybe having to increase it because they were dipping into fund balance, but then with that, you don't need to dip. We can leave it at $2 again for another year and see what's going on.
Charlie's question was whether or not we could take any of that money and put it into general fund.
No, you can't.
Okay,
can't.
and that's by
Not
the
tipping
way-
fee money.
Okay, so we can't increase that tipping fee to try to increase revenue to the county per se.
No, the only thing you can do when you got something like that is you can try and think of how the expenditures you are making can be subsidized within the statute by the tipping fee. So you can move expenses over there that are bona fide expenses that can be covered by the tipping fee under the law, but you can't take the money out and put it somewhere else and say, I want to spend it here.
Dick?
Back in the old days, I was more opposed to the tipping fee than Sonny is. And the reason is that we used to have 9 free drop-off points around the county. And everybody was taking everything to those free drop-offs. And I was paying a tipping fee on my garbage that I was having hauled. And of course, and Sonny's right about this, the biggest payers of the tipping fee are commercial and industrial, but it used to me, I was always opposed to it because why should I pay for somebody to go dump in that recyclable bin? Well, okay, what do they put in there? Well, they were putting everything in there. The girl that used to work for Waste Management, she told me more than once, a lot of times, there'd be deer carcasses in there, in the recycling bin, and all kinds of garbage. And of course, as soon as the haulers saw the garbage, they dumped it in the dump, because they didn't have to handle it, but
But also, I think
that was the trouble with it before, is it was
I think
awful.
American Waste probably wouldn't have the facility they got here today
Right.
if we hadn't done the recycling program that we had started.
Oh, American Waste has done a great job.
And so, I mean, they have really, they're separating, now we're at, what, 40%? If I remember correctly?
Yeah.
That
It's
about
getting-
40% that
It's
we're
getting more and more all
diverting
the
from
time.
the dump, which lowers the amount of money we get from tipping fees, but we're being environmentally stewards to be able to make sure that we aren't putting that stuff in the dumps like we were before.
And also they sell that.
And they sell and they make
Yeah.
money on it.
Right.
Well,
It's an up and down.
but
Dan?
there is something that I'll tell any one of you privately, but I'm not saying it, about the tipping fees.
I might be getting something mixed up, but I know, I looked at tonight's, our next meeting, and the new young lady that is involved with this,
Susan?
it looked like she had a negative $16,000. Did you see that number?
In that report, there was.
In that
one.
report.
Right.
So is this the same person? I mean,
Yeah.
so to say it doesn't cost anything, we're losing $16,000.
No,
on
that
it.
comes out of her fund balance. She
Yeah,
has a
the
fund
whole
balance.
purpose was to, the
Drop the
$2
fund balance.
tipping fee was to really reduce the fund balance. It
Drop
didn't
the
go
fund
down by
balance,
very
right.
much at all.
We thought
Okay,
that-
okay, so the tipping fee, that negative 16,000 is being paid by the tipping fee?
Yeah, we thought
Yeah.
the balance on the their fund balance should be dropped down, so that's why we lowered the tipping fee for that year.
I
But it was
have
gonna
to,
go down by 100,000, not 16,000. And
I
so
have to agree
16
with
is-
Sonny, and I know that's the way it is, but it seems unfair that we tax these people to pay for everyone else's garbage. Why don't they pay for their own, you know?
Well, I think the biggest argument is, have you heard anybody complain about their trash bill?
No.
And that's, we could put on
You'd have to put a special tax on
a
it.
fee
Yeah.
for recycling in our county.
But if you're a businessman and you're paying you're paying for someone else's garbage.
But I'm not hearing anybody complain.
Yeah, well, businessmen are.
But I'm just not hearing the complaints, and if you put the $15 a year that you're gonna charge for recycling, there are communities all over the country that mandatory recycle, or, you are paying a fee on a regular basis for recycling. We're not doing that. We're doing it with a $2 per ton tipping fee, and we're getting all the services that we possibly can get, and we're making an impact on our environment.
And nobody's complaining.
And nobody's complaining.
I'm not
that's the big
complaining.
Yeah, and nobody's
that is a
complaining.
big thing.
So I agree with you. I was not in favor of the tipping fee. I'm not getting any complaints. I'm not gonna try and do a
Right.
$20 a year fee to be able to say you're gonna pay for recycling and then hear them howl, because they will.
All right.
I got relatives in New York State that if they don't put recycling out with their trash, they don't take the trash.
Yeah, there's all kinds of things out there that are happening.
Well, our method's apparently working, so.
Sure,
We're doing really well.
it works.
It ain't broken.
Yeah.
I can say I was
Well,
in
it
Emmett
used to be
County.
broken.
They do a recycle at a rate of about 80%.
Wow.
And they have done that through educating their population there, is to want to do this sort of thing. And they run a double stream system instead of a single stream like we do over here, and it's amazing what they've done. But it took a lot of work and input to educate people for the need and the results of what this can do for the community. So 80% is attainable right locally here.
You wouldn't happen to know what their tipping fee is, do you?
When you consider commercial and industrial.
Charlie,
we're not
did
that
they have
far
a tipping fee? Or did they have a fee?
They just have a fee, I believe.
They had a fee,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay,
Okay, next.
ambulance. Bob Hall may want to talk about this one. This pays a flat annual fee to have unlimited transports from the jail. And Bob tells me that this is a wonderful savings for the county, and it's convenient for both parties as they don't have to keep track of individual billings. I don't know if Captain Hall wants to, add anything to that?
I think it's $495 for.
A run?
For one haul.
He does. I had a feeling he might want to say something
And
about that.
if you want to get a ambulance ride to Grand Rapids, it's $18,000.
I'm gonna buy an ambulance.
Maybe that we could get a couple of ambulances for the county.
Yeah.
Let's go in the ambulance business.
Captain Hall.
Yes, I'm Captain Hall, I'm the jail administrator. We anticipated you might have some questions about that line item. We just checked with North Flight. Their basic run to the Grand Traverse County Jail is $1,010 per run. That's before they load and do anything. If they hook up any equipment, defibrillator, heart monitor, C-collar to protect the C-spine or anything, everything adds on to that. It's like an à la carte, just keeps adding up. So
I'm only half, I'm sorry.
yeah, yeah. So I asked them for the total number of runs they did last year. They're looking that up for me.
Okay.
But I believe the 25,000 is cheaper than if we had to pay
All it takes is 25 calls
for
a year.
the run. Yeah,
One every other week.
Yep.
And I'm sure you're getting that.
we get a lot.
And they're not out, do they go other places other than Munson?
We just take them to the emergency room.
Any other questions? Thank you.
All right. TC Talus? Everyone knows what that is. I don't think I have to describe it. This is our membership fee, and I believe the road commission pays $10,000. They changed theirs to $10,000, is that right?
It's 12 here.
Yeah, it's 12. Ours is 12. I'm wondering if the road I think the road commission changed
They were
theirs to
paying
10. Pardon me?
I think they were paying 20.
Yeah. They reduced it to
They
10.
cut it back to 0, and
Then they
Dallas
pushed it up
told them
to
they
10.
wouldn't support them in their millage effort unless they paid.
Yeah,
I
they're,
think they
they're
paid-
paying full amount.
They paid 10.
Yeah, that's what I heard, 10.
I don't know if they paid the other half yet.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah,
Chris?
Well, I don't think the road commissioners are going to like my idea, but, you know, we all, sitting here, supported their road millage. I would like to ask the road, I really do believe this is the road commission's responsibility and not Grand Traverse County's responsibility. And I would like them to pay our $12,000. So,
Well, you need to have a county commissioner on that, and if you don't pay your dues, you don't have that representation on a TC Telus.
That's right.
And one of the things that I'm striving to do,
Are you certain?
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, one of the things I'm striving to do is to only those people that would have funding resources be on the TC Telus board. And it would then start us to look at doing as a, what's the name of the, in 10 years, when we have our population, that we become
Metropolitan.
a metropolitan. If we get into metropolitan, we will then receive more money federally.
If we ever get that.
Yeah, well, the problem is our density.
I'll
Yeah.
fly you
And-
somewhere real nice for lunch.
And we're getting closer to that density. The problem is that some of us are concerned that once we get to that piece, they'll change the rules.
Oh, they will. You know they will.
So, anyway,
And
so,
the reality is you can drop your membership. You know, the world's not going to end, but, you know, they do perform a function under ICE-T and, you know, federal granting.
Well, I
All
wasn't
those all those
suggesting-
planning items
I was just
require
suggesting giving
their
our
review.
bill to the road commission.
no. I don't think you want to do that, but Dan, go ahead.
Yeah, I do.
But one of the questions, you know, we're going to have to make some cuts somewhere. And so this is not mandated. And I ask myself, if we weren't paying this, okay, let's pretend we're not a member of this club, would we buy a membership for $12K now?
Well, we've had that debate for the last 4 or 5 years, and what they've done is they've come up with a strategic plan. They've, by virtue of them, by virtue of the Northwest Michigan Council of Governments allowing the Talus executive director in their office to fold into the new building over there with the Northwest Michigan Council of Governments, they have in essence dropped the dues basically in half for just
Yeah.
about everybody.
Yeah, we were about
So-
20,000.
So
before.
basically, we were running on really thin dollars that everyone's just kicking in at half the amount we were paying to get regional coordination with federal money and state money with MDOT to coordinate all the road improvements within Grand Traverse County. And you got to have an entity that's going to coordinate that along with the road commission to receive those state and federal funds, and they are the designated agency. So the reason why, and the list is 20 long, maybe 25 long, of entities that have kicked in that said regional planning of our roads, improvement of our roads, it has to be a number one goal of the community, along with public safety, but the, you know, the condition of our roads and the planning of our future roads and repairs of our roads. So we've got to have this entity. So, you know, you got the Chamber of Commerce, you got the airport, you got the county, you got, I can't remember them all,
Got to have their review.
but you got to have, but
We even have
So
one
it was- it was a-
representative in Leelanau County because of Elmwood.
yeah, it was important enough for all the entities that are on this list to come together and say, we need to come together as one group to make sure this happens. And Talus came back and said, we're going to shave this cost down to basically the cost of the executive director, and everything is going to be free. That's going to be extended out by the Council of Governments.
You're going to hear tonight where they're going to want a letter of support for Lafreniere Road for funding from the Road Commission. And if we can get that funding from the state of Michigan, you know, that's
dividends.
part of the TC Talus that's going to bring that funding. That's over $1 million.
Yeah, I mean, the dividend return on
Okay,
on
so
that
there's-
entity.
So, but remember though, the county road commission dropped them for a while. Apparently they weren't happy with them.
No, they didn't. They were not happy with them, but they came back and paid their dues.
So why weren't they happy with them?
Well,
They weren't getting the reports that they thought they should, and they're getting them.
Okay.
that's a good explanation.
Chris?
Herb, something that you said, you're pushing that only people who pay dues are members. Are there people
No,
who are...
only people that can receive funding and that can pay dues
Yeah.
shall be members.
Some of our townships don't belong because don't qualify for the funding.
Right.
You gotta have a state, mainly you gotta have a state highway run through your
Right.
township.
All right,
Okay.
thank you.
Sure. I'm pushing on that, so we'll see how it goes. Any other questions on TC Talus? Okay.
Fireworks. Not too much to explain there.
No. Moving on.
$1,000 for the Traverse City one, and $500
leave
for
that
Five
alone.
Lakes.
Yeah, we're
Moving
gonna
on.
kill
You get a
them
lot
that
of
one.
bang for your buck and no
Yes.
No pun intended. That's
No
probably the
pun.
only place we could bang for our buck.
Yeah.
Hundreds and
Literally.
hundreds of people are very, very happy every 4th of July. Moving on.
I think it's rather interesting to note that, you know, the people have had a discussion about the Convention and Visitor Bureau and whether or not they pay their taxes to be able to pay for the infrastructure. Every motel pays property taxes, and they don't pay a small amount.
Yeah.
And they
I
get those
tell
property
ya.
taxes because they fill their rooms.
Yeah.
And if you don't fill their rooms, they're not going to pay the taxes. And we got a brand-new motel that's coming online. Could have another one we found out today as part of the Commons, which could be another part of
Or
it.
tax dollars.
Those are all tax dollars that are coming into Grand Traverse County. This $2,000 was dropped down from $5,000 when we first got into it. It was $5,000, and it's put on by a separate club now, the Big Bang Boom Club or something?
Boom Boom.
Boom Boom
Boom
Club.
Boom, yes.
Yep. And so they're out there raising funds separately, and it used to be for the veterans group did this, and I appreciate the work that they did. You know, this is a July 4th celebration for our community.
Yes, it is.
How do you figure that if they don't fill their rooms, they don't pay their taxes?
Well, they're not going to be building the buildings.
Well, yeah, but the ones that are there, they're gonna pay their
Oh,
taxes.
sure, they're going to pay the taxes, but they are paying taxes for services that we are getting.
That was a bit misleading.
Okay, Charlie.
Real quick, this $500 for Fife Lake Village, is that
Yep.
in the budget? And that
Yes.
will go? Fine, thank you.
Okay. Next is Kingsley Community Center.
Yes, and we had set aside $25,000 appropriation for 5 years. Actually, it was done outside the budget process, for 5 years. And then commissioners told us to include it in the budget process. Of course, we didn't have the money to fund it. But I just noted here that that's something that has been done for 5 straight years. Obviously, the argument from the South County is that this is the only Parks and Rec facility that's in the South County, and that's why they had convinced commissioners to provide an appropriation over the years.
The problem is this was taken out of commissioners'
Contingency.
contingency fund for the past years, and it has not been part of the budget process.
Question, are we talking the community center or
Yes.
Civic Center?
Civic Center
Civic
South.
Center South.
Civic
Okay.
Center.
I'm sorry.
That's not the same as this.
Yeah,
one.
it
Do you
should,
want to
sorry.
relabel that?
yeah, it should be Civic Center South.
Sorry.
Instead of Kingsley Community Center?
Yeah.
Yes, that's
So
correct.
this is really Civic Center
important.
South,
Civic
right?
Center South.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what we're saying here then, that this $25,000 is in the 14 budget?
No, it's not.
It is
is
not in the
not.
budget?
Nope.
But it should be on this list because it was a request for this year. And it was not a funded request, but it has been for the last 5 years, so I would say that, it deserved inclusion anyway.
Dan?
I know Charlie's going to kill me for this, but I think this is one of the places that we have to say no.
I agree.
We have our own park system, and I think we should do some no saying there too when it comes time for that. So
If we say no to our own park system and we cut our own park system and don't cut this, shame on us.
no, I don't mean that. I mean that there could be some cuts that can be made in the park system without hurting our parks. Okay, I don't mean what you just said.
No, I said if we ask our own park systems to reduce their
Oh,
budget,
Okay.
then, and we pay this, shame on us.
Yes, I agree with that, yeah.
So Larry?
Just a perspective from South County. being the representative for 10 years, now Charlie's representative. And he's probably gotten this message, I would think, is that they came to us and said, let's have the Grand Traverse County Park System build a similar system that we have in Traverse City for the folks down in South County, because, we have a population base that can't get into town to use these recreational facilities. We really need those. And the county came back a number of years ago and said, I'll tell you what, you guys do the capital and we'll contribute and you run it. We're not going to have it as part of our own system. We're absorbed enough in Parks and Rec with regard to the Civic Center. But if you're willing to go out and raise the capital, and they got land donated in, they got donations, we said we would help them out at $25,000 a year. Part of the rationale was
For 5 years.
for 5 years, okay? And now they've got some additional land that's being donated back. Now they want us to reconsider, a couple more years of this donation. The other rationale behind this is, here's what they truly feel, whether it's right or wrong. They truly feel that they're left out of the focus of a lot of things that we do with our tax dollars. That they're way South County, all the population is centered into this county, Garfield, East Bay, Acme, whatever, Peninsula, and the concentration of county dollars for police, whatever you want to throw out is focused on the more populated areas. They pay property taxes too, and they feel that they want more attention, I guess is a way of saying it, in South County. And the Board of Commissioners said, okay, would this satisfy your feeling of not getting what you feel is your fair share in some sort of tax back to South County as an enhancement for the county tax dollars that you're paying? And so that's part of the rationale of making these contributions. And there, last I left, it's been a couple, it's been one term. Charlie's been there representing them and been to their meetings. I'm sure that they're gratified every time we make a donation like fireworks or get involved with Civic Center South. But Charlie might be able to speak up on this, but I'm sensing there still is that feeling down there in South County and Paradise and Fife Lake Township and those areas there that surround that Civic Center, is that this is some small token we can give back that they feel that, that is a return from their tax dollars, because they aren't getting what they think is the focus of the dollars they're sending into us.
Okay.
Is that,
It's
yeah,
basically true. We still have that
Yeah, no.
feeling out there that we're left out a little bit.
Yeah.
But this
Yeah,
park
no.
is not a township park. It is an authority in and of itself.
yes,
So I've talked to them repeatedly about looking for other sources of funding.
yes.
Tribal,
And we have Garfield Township, who have a
Rotary,
park system whose
things like.
people have paid,
Excuse me.
I'm sorry.
Excuse me.
I'm sorry.
And if you talk to people like the Doug Lucianos, Lucianis and so forth of the world, parks are a big part of creating place in a community. We have to help South County economically. If you look at our SEV stuff, that is the portion of the county that has lagged, has not rebounded, has not come back like other areas. They need help down there. This park is a huge asset for them in the village of Kingsley.
Right.
I think it's well worth the $25,000 for what we'll get back in the long run around it to help that part of this county. We do not have a park south of these soccer fields. This is an awful big county
Yes, we
south
do.
of those soccer fields.
Yes, we
we
do.
do.
Green Lake,
Green Lake, Blair.
That's a county park?
no,
No.
Township.
Oh, you're talking about county
I
park.
said county.
Okay,
Okay, now you're another guy from South County. I want to
Yeah.
know how you feel about this.
Yeah.
I'm in favor.
Let's,
Well, I would like to hear that.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I just said I was in favor of it.
Okay, thank you.
Always have been.
I
What do you
understand
say?
that. I think that's
He
important.
said he's in favor of it, he always has been. Dickie said that.
Okay. good.
I'm
Gotta
going to
speak into
move
your
this on.
microphone,
We've only
Dick.
got 25 minutes. And this should be, do you want to make this as a mark, as one of those things you want to discuss?
Well, I think Charlie said it better than I did.
Okay?
I think it's a big piece of what they have, and it's a small token on our part to help them out.
Okay. Okay, next is, I'm sorry.
I've been, over here.
Sorry, Chris.
I do want to discuss it when we talk about
When we
budget.
bring it back.
Okay?
Yeah, me too.
And, Mr. Chairman, if we could, I also, Chris Kramer might want to hurt me for this, but I don't think Dean will. I also, before we leave this morning's budget meeting, want to talk about perhaps until year-end is closed, just sticking with one meeting a week, like Wednesday for budget meetings, rather than Wednesdays and Fridays.
Let's finish this before we go
Okay.
into that. Dick?
Well, the last thing about the park down there is if you haven't been down there, go see what they've done in the last 5 years or so. And most of it's been volunteers, so they've done one hell of a job.
Okay. No doubt. Any other discussion there? Next is the Building Authority.
Building Authority is a statutory board, and it is basically an implementation team for you. You know, if we were to have the county board build buildings and have to go to committee meetings to get bills paid and to get decisions on every little seam in the dishcloth, there's got to be thousands of decisions that have to be made when you're constructing a facility for a governmental entity. And the Building Authority fulfills that for the Board of Commissioners and finances. Basically, it's an artifice that the board has created years and years ago. And the board gives the property to the Building Authority, and the Building Authority builds the building with the debt that's incurred, you know, a bond usually, and then pays those bonds off and then gives the building back to the county when the last payment is made. And it works out very well. You got myself, Dean, Bonnie, Dave Lather, and Heidi Sheppy.
Good person.
And we should have a new.
Susan?
I can't think of her name right now.
Okay. Well, at any rate, that's our job, to build buildings and pay the debt on those buildings. Now, the only thing that I say about this is that there's no general fund cost to this. But I want to bring up that when you pay bonds, when you take out bonds for townships and for sanitary sewer projects and for water projects, and use the full faith and credit of the county, Dean gets stuck doing that for 20 years. He won't be doing it at the last part of it, but you know, we give that's a lot of county time and resources, and several counties have implemented fees on townships that want to do that, or other governmental units that want to use the full faith and credit of the county. They charge them something and they have you know, depending on how big the issuance is, there's a fee that's attached to that comes in as a revenue to the county. That's something that we ought to think about looking at. It's a possible source of revenue. It's certainly a justifiable source of revenue because, you know, they will maintain those bonds for 20 years and make sure that the Treasury Department gets reported properly and all those things are done properly. So, just something I throw out.
I think we should be doing this kind of stuff. We give a lot of our stuff away, and
Yes, we do.
You know, we're
And
not
it's part of our
charging proper
collaboration.
rent sometimes. So this is I think we should bring this back and look at, see if we can turn it into a revenue source.
Okay.
Okay.
Charlie?
Have you done any projections as to what that could mean? or-
Oh, it's not going to be a nominal fee. It's going to be per thousand, cost up to a certain size of the bond, and then once it gets to bigger bonds, then you reduce the fee, so it's not a big amount. We're talking, in the tens of thousands, not in the hundreds of thousands.
Annually?
Yeah.
You also have to remember, a lot of the townships and villages are paying those bonds off, so there are fewer and fewer bonds out there.
Yeah, and you would have to do them prospectively, not,
Yeah.
you couldn't do it retroactively.
Right.
Yeah.
All the bonds that have been done are done.
Construction codes?
Construction codes is an enterprise fund, means it functions as a business. It's supposed to, its revenues and its expenses have to equal. Bruce Ramey is our director, and he is very, very frugal. Maybe, I want to make sure that he is generating enough revenue to do the job right. he's been, he increased the hours of the inspectors with all the increase in activity. But we want to make sure that people aren't getting their projects held up here in Grand Traverse County, and it's moving along at a good clip. We had been reducing fund balance, but authorized an increase in the fee this year, a 5% increase, and that should keep them going. And I believe they're going to have to hire additional staff soon when the next construction season
But
gets
in
into
the
full gear.
budget, you mentioned that they haven't bought any new vehicles.
No, they haven't.
And so we may be into having to purchase vehicles for this department.
Yeah.
They're going to have to put that in. Hopefully, maybe that 5% fee will start to pay for some of those vehicles or whatever. We're going to have to be looking at that.
Right.
Dan?
Is soil erosion in this now?
I've left soil erosion on the list of departments to be interviewed.
Okay, so it's separate from this?
Correct.
Okay, cool.
Other questions? Charlie?
On an annual basis, in that it's an enterprise department, do they more than cover their costs?
Yes.
Yes,
Does it go right to their fund balance?
yes. It can't leave, it's not leaving that
So it
department.
cannot leave that department?
That's a good question.
Correct. We,
think-
when Dave was putting this together, he was busy and we didn't really have a chance to coordinate this like we would normally do. But in 2013, they're actually having a very, very good year. They're going to add to their fund balance instead of using fund balance. And I wanted to, they do have the means to replace vehicles. And Dave mentioned that Bruce is very conservative. He has the financial means within this fund to do what they need to do.
What you also have to understand is they provide this service for all townships except for Garfield Township.
Correct.
So this is throughout the whole county except for Garfield Township.
Why is that, Herb?
Garfield has chosen to do their own.
Does that take revenue from the county?
We don't have
Depends on how you look at it, probably not.
Probably not. Doesn't it?
Yeah, I
Doesn't?
mean, this is one of those things that the county, the township doesn't receive any revenue, the county doesn't receive any revenue. It goes into this fund, and the fund is there so that if something
Offset the
happened like the
costs.
downturn, we took money out of their fund balance to pay for all these projects that were in the pipeline. So that's what they're doing, is they're establishing a fund to take care of the pipeline of projects when and if you have to start laying people off.
I guess my question is, why wouldn't we have uniformity throughout the county? How's that?
Because Garfield Township
their
chooses
choice.
not to be part of.
Yeah, I talked to Bruce Ramaya about that a little bit, and he seems to think that's a source of, the building permit itself is where the money is. The inspections sort of cover themselves. And that, in fact, that would bring more revenue to the county should we switch that over from Garfield. I don't know how he would do that.
You can't do it without their permission.
It's the township's choice.
It's their choice first.
Green Lake we used to do our own.
We would have to convince them of that.
As soon as I came here to this job, the new supervisor wanted to get out of it.
They pay better wages than we do.
Well, and you can turn this all over to the state if you want,
At one point,
which
we
is
were,
not what anybody wants.
all we did in this enterprise fund was the building code. The electrical, mechanical, and plumbing, that was all done by the state.
Yep.
So, I mean, this has evolved over time, and the fact that we don't have Garfield in the, who knows? I mean, they may have, at some point in time, they may approach the county to do that. You know, we're doing that work for the city.
Actually, it was the other way around, is they have approached the county and said, we'd be glad to do it for you.
See, the city doesn't do their own anymore.
Dan?
Well, if this ever gets to the point, I mean, could it ever get to the point where we say, let's give some of this back to our voters, let's lower our fees? I mean, enterprise fund, how are they doing? They get a big fund balance, can we drop the fees?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not a big fund balance, but it's,
No, I mean, I don't know what it's gonna look like after we replace vehicles, but, we'll see how it goes next year, and whether he has to hire additional staff. I mean, you gotta have enough inspectors to make the inspections on a timely basis with those.
I agree.
So he's been stretching what he's got.
They're down about 4 inspectors right now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they reduced when the economy turned down.
By the way, has our no hire freeze, is that still We don't have that now, right?
No, it's
Do
not
we?
over.
That's over?
Oh,
No, it's not over.
Okay,
No, that's still in place.
okay, cool, all right.
so they'd have to come back to us in order to get approval to do
Okay.
Better
so.
not get rid of that.
Okay.
That brings, yeah, I mean, that brings up the question of what do you do on, Friday, if you're going to have a meeting on Friday, or who's going to be next. We have a couple departments waiting in line for that very reason. They, want to post those positions, and they want to talk to you about these budget items, so they can explain to you why they need that position filled. And, anyway,
Okay.
the sheriff's still got 2 empty deputy positions.
I'm going to use the rest of this for any other comments about what was presented. Are there any other comments or questions? Okay, so, there was Dean, did you have something you wanted to bring up? Okay,
You want Chris Kramer to talk a little bit about the Board of Commissioners? Just to tell you
Oh.
what's in that budget?
okay. Come on, you want to talk about that, Chris? Board of Commissioners?
Hi, I'm Chris Kramer. I put together just an explanation, as Dave asked me to, what exactly is in the line items, with Dean's help a little bit. It's pretty self-explanatory as far as, I think you, for the most part, most of you know what is in those line items as good or better than I do. There's a few things,
Keep going down.
the MIS, or IT charges, that includes my information or my computer, as well as, like the purchase of your iPads, the purchase of the computer, the new computer for this room that we use when people have presentations. The phone charges that are in there, those also include some of our conference rooms or our general rooms within the county building, as well as my personal phone and any of the AT&T charges that you have for your services on your iPads. There's really not a lot of things, we are really frugal. We recycle everything, and so our supplies or anything, it's pretty much cut down to what, you ask me for, so.
Thank you.
So, whatever,
And
if there's any
to-
questions about anything.
To clarify, it's not your personal phone, it's the phone on your desk, right?
That is correct. It's
Just to be
it's
clear.
just you and, the
been
stuff
here
that
long
we
enough
use
that
in
it's
our
her
office. so. But, so anyways, that's, if there's
Thank
any
you, Chris.
questions about
Thanks,
anything,
Chris.
that's fine. But
Stay there, though. I want to, from time to time, questions are asked as to why we have the audit expense entirely in the board's budget, or why we may have a significant amount budgeted for attorney expenses, and there's the other item, the cost allocation plan. But when those costs are accumulated in this department, we also do a cost allocation plan to allocate those costs back to not only other funds, but other departments within the general fund because of the funding sources that we have. So that's the main reason why you have, I think it's a $37,000 or $38,000 line item for the annual audit. We do allocate those costs back through another document or another cost plan, so there's a revenue on the other side of the Board of Commissioners budget. So even though you bear the brunt of those costs, we're charging those back through that cost allocation plan to recover federal, state, or in some cases, when those costs are charged back to, say, for example, the circuit court, 2 other counties help pay for some of those costs. So it may seem unfair that you bear that cost, but we do what we can to allocate that back to places where we can recover outside dollars to help pay for that. And I was glad Chris listed that and asked about that plan. That's about an $8,000 cost to have that plan done.
Okay.
Other questions or
I don't
comments from Chris?
I don't have a question, but
Questions from Dan?
Well, Do you have a number, ballpark number, of what we actually cost the county? I know we have a salary, we have benefits.
Yeah, there's
We can
We
give you that
It's
number.
in
We
your-
can
it's in
actually,
your
because there are
budget
really two
number.
things going on here. I mean, actually more than two things. But there's the Board of Commissioners, which cannot be allocated to other,
Right.
I don't believe the cost allocation plan allows for the expenses of the Board of Commissioners, the per diems and so forth, to be allocated as an overhead cost to the rest of the.
Yeah, that's correct.
But the other things, you know, the audit and attorney fees and all those are being allocated, and they can be put somewhere else.
No,
Well,
And they can be put into the
they
finance
gotta be
budget, or
put
they can be,
somewhere,
they gotta
they're
be put
fine
somewhere.
here.
I'm just saying, if we're looking at trying to save money on what we, you know.
There isn't any much, there isn't anything to get.
You know, I mean, where can we cut?
I
Per
have-
diems, things like that.
No.
I just need to,
Well, there's
Go
a, you know, you can see on here, there are some things that you can cut the audit expense, but then you won't get an audit. You can ask the state of Michigan to do it, but they don't do a very good job, and it might take them a year or two to get the, you know, the one.
I'm thinking more about what we personally can cut, like,
I have an idea.
You had another question, or you want me to go to Chris?
go to Chris, yeah.
Okay, Chris.
One of the things that I would like to talk about are our conferences. I do believe that they are important, and I do not believe that commissioners ought to be expected to pay for them out of their own pocket. That being said, I don't believe everybody needs to go. And I am bringing up NACO right now because tomorrow, I believe, is early registration. And I am supportive of sending 2 people to NACO. And I'm going to make this recommendation because I'm not one of the ones I'm recommending sending. I'm recommending we send Larry Inman and Dave Benda. We've heard umpteen million examples tonight where Dave, you know, I said, for instance, let's take a look at bidding out our insurance. A NACO conference is an excellent spot for Dave to question other administrators throughout, you know, from all over the country, how they're doing it, if there isn't a better way, if there isn't a better company, and there may not be, there may be. But I think Dave absolutely should go. And the other person I think that should go is Larry Inman, and I suggest him because he has got, he has years of contacts and experience with NACO. I think he will bring back the most information to the board, along with the fact that we, as commissioners, can view that conference on video after Commissioner Inman returns. And so that is my suggestion. And that will cut our travel budget.
Sure. Dan, do you have other questions? I'm going back to you.
No, I still think that we can, we should bring this back and figure out how we can say, I'm looking at, we got to find $1 million somewhere. And in our budget, that means 2.5% overall. So I think we should at least look at a 2.5% reduction in what we spend on ourselves as individuals on this board. Maybe we can voluntarily not get so many per diems. Or maybe we can, I've talked to Bob about that, and he says we can do that. So we should come back to this, and we should save some money, as much money as we ask anyone else to save.
Larry?
Well, you know, I've been through as chairman twice for the Board of Commissioners and been through this budget 22 years. You know, outside of commissioners going to conferences, which is very important, if we're going to be the best and bringing back the best ideas from from the rest of the counties in the state of Michigan, you got to attend those conferences, network, and get the latest information on what's going on in Lansing. Otherwise, you're burying your head in the sand. I'm not saying everybody has to go, but not. I think we've been fair on the board. I mean, you know, 3 or 4 or 5 of the commissioners out of 9 have decided not to get involved with MAC and NACO, and the rest have, and I think that's good. You know, when you throw in the accounting expenses and the attorney expenses and litigation expenses and everything else into our budget, you aren't going to come up with 2.5%. The only thing I would suggest is that, you know, we trim back slightly the number of people that go to MAC and NACO. That's a discretionary thing. There are no other discretionary things. I think if we don't get paid enough to do this job. and a $35 per diem to get in your car and drive down to these meetings, these township meetings in here, I think we should be paid for them. If you don't want to put them on your per diem sheet, that's your decision. And I think, talking about, can we pare back these budget meetings and get this process done, as Commissioner Rennie has said, sooner and faster and put more back into the fund balance? I'm all in favor of that. And
So you
if we
wanna
can,
continue meeting
if we can,
Fridays?
if we can get rid of this Friday meeting and get right down to the meat and make some decisions and cut part of those per diem expenses off these budget meetings on Fridays, I'm in favor of it.
Charlie?
I agree with Larry and Commissioner Baxbauer on that. We're in a time of collaboration. That's all we hear about. We should have reps at MAC and NACO. Whether it's 4 or 5, I don't know. I think we should put more emphasis on MAC, actually. Have a couple, 3 people go to that. 2 people to Washington, fine. If Larry should go, he could come back and make a presentation to us about what he found out at NACO that year.
Right.
I do believe we must stay in contact with these groups. We are a great county. We don't want to go backwards.
I agree.
And that would be a way to go backwards, in my opinion. I don't think the money's that exorbitant for what we get out of it.
We've got about 4 minutes left on this meeting. If you would like this to be brought to an agenda item, Chris needs to know this for NACO as of tomorrow. I think tomorrow's the last day
The last day for the
for
early
the early registration
Well-
fees. So if we want
I
to
mean,
just
Sonny
have an
doesn't go, so I think we're
understanding,
fine.
we
Let's-
can just do an understanding that we're only going to send the 2, and we don't need to do anything, and then we can work on NACO at a later date, if that's all right? Is
Yeah,
that everybody comfortable with that?
I'm more than
Mac.
comfortable with that.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
MAC is coming up in March, so you got to make a decision there, too.
So we have to make a decision fairly soon on MAC, too, but we can put that in.
But MAC is very low in expense. We drive
Yeah.
down.
Yeah,
You got
it's-
a day
Well,
and a half at the conference center.
Except that it's on
driving
Mackinac
back.
Island, it's not very cheap.
And I would like, yeah.
That's
and-
the summer
That's the
one.
fall one.
I'm
Oh.
talking about the legislative one down in
Oh,
Lansing.
the one in Lansing?
That'll be
Yeah.
Lansing.
Yeah, okay.
That's in March.
Yeah. So anyway, I just think that, we need to put that on our agenda rather quickly if we're going to discuss it, or we come to an agreement at one of these meetings.
Well, I think for NACO, as far as I'm concerned, we
Two.
send our
We made our
administrator
decision.
and
And I-
Commissioner Inman,
and I'm
and
fine-
we watch it on video.
Yeah,
I'm
okay.
fine with 3 or 4 going down to MAC, because it's an easy trip down, it's a day and a half, and it's back, and it's not that much expense.
Yep, yep. So, all right. So that's, any other questions or any comments you have?
Well, I think we changed it, just for Commissioner Lathrop, I think we kind of changed gears here in going from explaining what you have, and this is just kind of an idea of what, when you go through your budget book, what is covered under all those
Gotcha.
items,
Thank
okay? So, that I didn't go through item by item, because I think salary and benefits, it includes the 7 of you and me, basically. So, the salary is there, and I agree with Larry. I don't get paid enough to do this.
I love it. Open the door, Larry.
Open that door.
Okay.
And then, anybody who has 7 bosses, plus, a few others in the office.
Yeah, but we're so easy to get along with.
I do agree with that, but,
And you're always so
your
pleasant.
expenses, basically, your per diems, the audit expense is something that, I think we have to pay. I mean, it's something, and whether it comes out of the board's or someone else's budget, it is something that, it's a county expense, that we need to do that to make sure we're doing things correctly.
I didn't mean to say we shouldn't do it. I
Right.
just wanted to be able to take that number out in my head and find out what me
Yeah.
and other guys like me cost.
Well, the attorney fees and the contract services and stuff, as you'll see that's listed here, it is the things, they're the things that come to you, such as Dave's appraisal. We hired Mary Grover, so that contract came to you and you agreed to that. So item by item, as long as you watch out for that, you're seeing all that information come to you with the prices, and you'll see that, for most of those items, we have gone out for bids, we do what we have to do, and we bring them back and give you the best price. So it's pretty self-explanatory. There were just a few items that, we thought, well, maybe you don't know what all's included. And even when I, verified that some of the conference room fees, there are general conference rooms in the building, and maybe we can work in doing something with that. But and there are fees that somebody's going to have, they're going to have to come out of some budget. So you guys are the lucky ones.
Okay. All right. Now, next on the agenda is the Friday meeting that Chris is saying we don't want.
Well, I don't want to do it right now. Dean has other things to do, and I do want to move very, very quickly, but we have a budget in place. He has to close out the end of the year, and we have to have him alive to do it. So, and I know, Dean, you're going to sit there and say, I'm going to do whatever I have to do, and I'm going to work for you commissioners, but, I think asking you to come to 2 meetings a week in January when you're trying to close out the year is unreasonable, and that's just my personal opinion.
Well, thank you, and I will make a comment. I think you have some departments, though, that need to come sooner rather
Okay.
than later, and they're planning on it. And
right.
if I can't make a meeting because we have to get I will let Dave know, but I plan on being here
All right.
at these meetings.
All right. Friday's schedule is the list of services, mandated, non-mandated, staffing, pension, how much to spend, and how
Okay.
much we're actually going to do the next 3 meetings. We're going to schedule the next 3 meetings by where you put your ranking as to how many minutes we're going to spend on which department.
Okay.
So we
Oh.
need to have that in, so you need to look at the review of the budget list and say, my number 1 priority I want to see is the sheriff, the courts, Department of Public Health.
Oh, I misunderstood
And so we
that.
can start to get those in place, so we can give them enough notice that they can start planning this thing.
Oh, I misunderstood you, Mr. Chairman. I thought the administrator just asked if the time sequence was reasonable, and then he would schedule them in.
Is that what you're going to do, Dave?
Yeah, I mean,
That's fine.
if you want to tell me, which ones you want to see first, that's fine. Right now, what I was really looking for was, I've got 30 minutes for the Board of Commissioners. Well, we've kind of talked about the Board of Commissioners, and you've got enough information to be able to do whatever you need to do. But when you look at, say, if you want to talk to the sheriff, we're going to have to take a full meeting for that.
Right.
So the sheriff's going to need time to prepare for that. We do have a couple of departments that want to go first. Equalization wants to go first. GIS wants to talk about the retirement that he wants to fill, that we're not allowing him to fill until he
Fine.
gets approval from the board for that. And he's going to tell you why he needs that filled. Dean said he wouldn't mind going. In fact, we could probably put the administrator, human resources, and finance together, because to me, that's one big happy family. I mean, it really is. I mean, the duties are fungible in some ways. If it's not done in HR, it's done in finance. If it's not done in finance, it's done in my office.
All right, so the agenda will be set by the administrator for whatever departments, and you'll make the decision as to which ones are coming first, second, third.
Yeah, we'll do that for right now. If you've got preferences, if you want to see.
Okay, Chris?
I'm just going to ask our administrator, please don't make a liar out of me. This morning at Commission on Aging, I said that we would involve the Commission on Aging Board.
Right.
And I plan Thursday night at Parks and Rec to let
Say
them
the
know
same
that
thing,
they
yeah.
too will
Right, yep.
appropriately be involved.
And duly noted.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions? Is everybody comfortable with what we got? Is everybody comfortable with the meeting that we had today? Any comments or questions or concerns?
I
Charlie?
might have a comment. I'm at the point now where I agree with Dean and Dave. I think we got great department managers. I don't think we're going to find that much when we go through this process. I think it's a lot of time, a lot of burden we're putting on the various department heads. We've got an approved budget. We approved it. The budget's there.
Yeah, but
We adopted it.
We're looking at 2015.
I understand that.
Right.
Pretty much what's going on is going to go forward. I think we're way buried too much in minutia right now, looking at all this stuff. And I don't think the numbers that we're going to come out are going to be that much different than what these departments have already given us. I think it's time maybe to look at how we're focusing on this. Dave has told us the price of government, that analysis, been thrown in the trash heap of history.
No,
No, it has not.
Until, here's the deal on that one. That book should have been read by this board 10 years ago, not now. That's the difference. Right there. Now, I believe we should start looking at the scope of where we're going to, as a policy board, send this county. I think we're looking at a future of more of a administrative from the county as far as delivering these services. We're going to have to start farming these services out or to do something, but become more managerial, using internet and technology to help us control this and make services better, not less. This budget I see is eating on itself. We're gradually, if we continue going down this road, we're going to gradually lose employees and services. It's the only thing we got left. We got to change how we look at this. And I don't think it's by looking at it from the bottom. These people do what they're told, and I believe they do a good job at it. So I don't know what that means. I know we got a lot of meetings scheduled here, a lot of angst amongst our employees and department heads. I can see it in their face. We don't know the minutia of what's going on in these departments. Some are funded, some are granted, some come from general fund. Very complicated thing. And I don't really know if it's worth what we're going to get out of it by looking at it from this viewpoint. That's where I'm at with it.
Okay, good comments. Any other comments? Chris?
The price of government, I wasn't even going to talk about this ever again, but I am going to defend it.
You brought it up.
The price of government is more valid today than it ever was. It says you don't spend more than you take in, and you find ways to be more productive. And you, I mean, is anyone aware that you actually can reduce expenditures and not reduce services? It is possible.
Not with that budget you okayed.
Okay.
You're not talking about anybody
Yes, it
in
is.
Washington.
Watch me.
Wait.
Watch
Any
me.
other comments
watching.
about the meeting?
It's okay.
Then we will
I
go
didn't
to
walk up.
public comment. Anybody from the public wish to comment? Seeing none, then we are adjourned.
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Dinner.
who's gonna get that Jimmy John's thing going?
Here, it's here.
Oh, it's here?
They're going to be now.